All right, so it's Rose Unplugged, and I'm here with Congressman Reschenthaler. Crazy, crazy times right now. A lot to talk about, though, as a result of the election. So, Guy, one of the first things I wanted to ask you is, what is your opinion on how many minorities and women, particularly in the Republican Party, actually won their races? I mean, that is some kind of accomplishment, and many would say that that would be unusual in the past for Republicans. And I think the president opened the door for those wins. I really do. What do you think about those wins?
I think it's incredible, Rose. I mean, not only did we have unprecedented support from minority groups. I mean, just look at Florida. President Trump and Republicans got roughly 50% of the Hispanic vote, but we have a class of Republicans that are coming into office that are largely minorities, women, and veterans. So I think it's really good that the Republican conference mirror the look of the electorate. This is only going to help our party grow and also relate and resonate with Hispanic voters, African American voters, women voters in elections to come. The Democrats should not neglect the fact that it is the Republican Party that has the big tent now. The Democrats want to draw lines in the sand and tell people they can't come in. So it's a great, regardless of what happens with the presidential election. Obviously, I'm rooting for the president, but regardless what happens, Republicans won big on election day. And Democrats should take notice that the parties are shifting, and we as Republicans are now officially the big tent party.
And that's true because, the left's narrative has been for as long as I can remember that we were not inclusive, that we hated minorities, that we hated gays, that we weren't, in fact, now the narrative recently had been that we don't support the military. None of that has ever been true, but now it's never been more obviously untrue than it is right now, particularly after the 2020 election.
Well, just look at what President Trump did in the last 4 years. We had the lowest unemployment rate among African American workers since they even started counting that the unemployment rates. Additionally, the Hispanic wages increased as well. So it was a big economic win for pretty much all Americans, but the minority communities especially saw big wins in their paychecks. And further, we can't say enough about the fact that we have Senator Tim Scott, my good friend from South Carolina, pushing economic opportunity zones, which actually makes a lot of difference in urban core areas. And then criminal justice reform. The Democrats talked about criminal justice reform for decades, but they did nothing about it. It was actually Republicans in state general assemblies, myself included, when I was in the Pennsylvania State Senate, and we got clean slate passed. But it was Republicans in general assemblies across the United States, and it was Republicans led by President Trump in D.C. that got the First Step Act accomplished.
And that's interesting. And let's talk about Democrats for a moment and their policies, because clearly those policies just weren't resonating with the American people. And I think that, when you remember what the pollsters were saying about, for example, how they were going to win big time and there's going to be a blue wave and a landslide for Democratic candidates, that just was not true. A lot of that has to do, no doubt, with their policies.
Well, the Democrat Party has gone way too far to the left. And right now, you're going to see a civil war unfold within that party. That party is going to tear itself apart. And it's not now the centrists versus the liberals. There's very few centrists, if at all. It's really the liberals versus the socialists or the social justice Democrats, whatever they're calling themselves today. I call them the social justice warriors. But you have liberals that are already far too left of what, let's say, JFK used to be, your blue dog Democrats that we grew up with in southwestern Pennsylvania. They're no longer around. It's now those liberals, a lot of them limousine liberals, and the social justice warriors led by AOC, Omar Tlaib, et cetera. But that party is far too left. And I think this election is actually a rejection of the kind of policies that they were putting forward. Everything from identity politics to the Green New Deal to buddying up with the CCP in Venezuela. The voters rejected that. That should be the big takeaway for that party.